Today, lesson 8A, multi-step problems with percents. This is the last official lesson in Unit 1. We'll have to make a decision by tomorrow when the actual test will be. I had mentioned something yesterday, but I may change my mind on that. It just depends on how things go today. So today, multi-step problems with percents. So today, you will be able to find the part or whole given a situation involving percents or fractions. So essentially, we're just kind of extending out what we did yesterday. You will also be discussing possible ways of breaking down percent problems to create a tape diagram. And our typical why am I learning this? One example might be to find the percent of homes in which a television is being watched at a given time. All right, as usual, a little bit of background knowledge of what we've been dealing with. So far in this unit, we have talked about converting between decimals, percents, and fractions, writing equivalent fractions, probability, and yesterday using models to solve percent problems. And today, once again, we're going to kind of extend on that idea. Here was a problem we did yesterday where we were finding 60% of 145. We talked about from 6th grade, you could divide 145 up into many different ways, 100 parts or 10 parts or 5 parts. 5 parts is clearly easier than 10 or 100 because of the fact that we're breaking it up into parts that are a whole number. And that represents 145 from that, which is 100%. And if you're looking for 60% of that, you're looking for 3 of those 5 sections, which would give us 87 for that problem. And then we also talked about a problem like this yesterday where we're looking for 25% of what number is 12. Once again, using a tape diagram. This time we don't know the whole number. We do know that represents 100%. I broke it up into 4 sections because of the fact that 25% is mentioned within the problem, which is 1 out of 4 sections. And that 25% is 12. So each section within the tape diagram is 12. So therefore, the whole number is 48. And then we reviewed how to do this, what I term the mathematical way, by dealing with a proportional relationship from percent over 100 equals the part over the whole. And we went into that in full detail as well yesterday. All right, so number 1 for today. 60 is 40% of what number? I'm going to let all of you give that one a shot. And then you will notice that I do have a tape diagram there because today our focus is on tape diagrams because the problems we're doing today they are slightly more complicated, and I believe that using a tape diagram in many of these might help some of you. I'm kind of walking around looking to see how some of you are breaking up your tape diagram. The thing you need to realize is that it doesn't matter how many sections you divide your tape diagram up into as long as it will create an easier situation for you. I'm breaking mine up into 5 sections, and the reason is because of the 40% there. 40%, remember, is 2/5. So I'm interested in 2 out of those 5 sections. So we don't know the total or whole amount. We do know that that represents 100%. What we do know is that the 40%, which is 2/5, is 60. 60 is 40% of what number? So if that's the case, those 2 sections have to be represented by 60, and of course they're each equal sections, so therefore each one of those would be 30. And so that means all of these sections within my tape diagram are 30, and so that means the whole number is 150. Okay? All right. Now remember, if you did it the mathematical way, it would look like this. But for today, I think I want our focus to be more on tape diagrams than doing it that way. And I'm not saying you couldn't do it the mathematical way. Now, the 60 was the 40%. We're going to be doing a lot of problems today where we have to think about what I'm calling this leftover part. 60 was the 40%. 90 was the other 60%, or what I'm calling, once again, the leftover part. So we're going to come back to this idea of leftover in some of these problems. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. Number 2 says that there are 36 students in a math class. 3/4 of the students take an art class after their math class. The rest take a social studies class. Let's change the 1/2 to 3/4. I'm assuming it's supposed to be 3/4. And if it's not, then we'll find out here in a hurry. How many students take art after math? Well, I'm going to break this up into, my tape diagram up into 4 sections because of the mention of 3/4. And I know that the whole amount of students, or the total amount of students, is 36, and of course, that is 100%. And so if that's the case, each of those 4 sections have to be a specific amount. And what I'm interested in here is the fact that 75%, which is 3/4, is the first 3 of the 4 sections. And so what we're looking for is what the 75% or the 3/4 would be. Well, what would it be? What would it be? 27. And the reason is because if we have 4 sections of a tape diagram divided equally and the total amount was 36, the first 3 of those 4 would, of course, be 27. Now, what does that 27 represent? Well, that represents what we are looking for. Now, what does the other part represent? So what we know right now is that 27 students take art after math. But what are the 9 students? What does that represent?
How many take social studies?
That's the leftover part once again, and that's how many take social studies. So if you were asked a question like that, that's how you would figure that out, right? 27 take math. The others have to be taking social studies because it says the rest take a social studies class. All right. Everybody try number 3. What if I change the answer or the question to how many questions did he get incorrect? I mean, if you look at your tape diagram, it should be obvious, right?
30.
It'd be 30. Okay, so if we break our tape diagram up like this, that's not the only way that you could break it up. That's just one way. I broke it up into 5 equal sections. We know that 150 is the whole, or the 100%. We get 80% correct, so 4 out of those 5 sections, and that's the number we're trying to find. Well, we know each section has to be 30 because of the 150 divided equally into 5 sections. There's the 120, and then of course that 30 is the leftover number, or the number that you got incorrect. All right, let's go to number 4. Number 4 states that Juan earned money for creating a web page for a local business. He used 1/2 of the money he earned for new shoes and 2/3 of the rest for music. He has $20 left. That was the reason why I was throwing out this idea of leftover. If you have some money left, that's like the leftover amount, okay? How much money did he earn in his work? Well, I'm going to divide this into 2 equal sections because it said he used 1/2 of his money he earned for new shoes. So I don't know the total amount of money or whole amount of money that he earned. That's what I'm trying to find, which represents 100%. What I do know is that he earned or spent half of his money on new shoes. I do know that, which is 50%. And I know that he spent 2/3 of the rest. So on that second half of the tape diagram, 2/3, so I'm going to divide that up into 3 equal sections. I know that he spent 2/3 of the rest of that for music. Yeah, so the question there was, so does that make the last square 20? Because that is the leftover, and that is absolutely correct. All right, that's that 1/3 that's left there is the amount left. So what that means is that the other 2 1/3 sections are also 20. Okay? And so that means that he had to spend 60 on his half of shoes because that second half of the tape diagram is 60. And then the question was, how much money did he earn for his work? Well, obviously that would be 120. So that was the reason why I started these first two problems, or first three problems, talking about this idea of leftover, because sometimes that's where we have to start and then sort of work backwards, which is pretty much what we did within that problem. So he earned $120 for work. All right. Any questions with this one? Let's take a look at number 5. There are 360 7th grade students at Eisenhower Middle School. 1/4 of the students went to Claremont Elementary. Of the rest, half went to Central Elementary, and the others came from a variety of other elementary schools. How many students came from Central Elementary? I'm going to let you try and get started on that one, and then I'll come back with you in a minute and a half or so. So the first thing you should be doing is trying to figure out how you're going to separate your tape diagram. So let's take a look at this. I divided my tape diagram up into 4 sections simply because the first part mentioned was 1/4. That was the main reason why I did it that way. And we know that the whole amount, or the total number of students in 7th grade represents, that is 360, and that's represented by 100% of the students. And 1/4 of them went to Claremont, so that is the first part. Of the rest, half went to Central Elementary School. And of course, I figured out that 1/4 of 360 is 90. And I like what some of you did. You went ahead and filled in all the rest, or the different sections of the tape diagram, with 90. Then we need to go into, of the rest, half went to Central Elementary, and then the others came from a variety of others. So half of the rest, which would take me to another 1/4 section and half of one of the 1/4 sections, right there. And of course, those are the students who came from Central. And then the rest came from a variety of other elementary schools. So the question is, how many students came from Central? Well, it should be clear that we took half of one of the fourths, so that would be 45 and 45. So the number of students who went to Central has to be 135 students. Any questions there? We sure? All right, everybody try number 6. I'll leave this one up here because I know a couple of you are still copying stuff down, but now go ahead and go to number 6. I'm going to give you about a minute to a minute and a half by yourself, and then we'll get together with your shoulder partner. All right, I saw lots of good work on number 6 as I was walking around. Number 6 goes like this. At a Monument Valley High School, I guess I should just say at Monument Valley High School, 3/4 of the 7th grade students went to Salt Lake City on a field trip. Half of the rest of the students went to Monticello for a different field trip. If there were 12 students that did not go on either trip, how many 7th grade students are there in all? So I divided into 4 equal sections because of the fact that the very first part said 3/4 of the blah, blah, blah. So that told me that I wanted to divide it up into 4 sections. Some of you did it slightly differently. So we're looking for the entire number of students, or the whole amount of 7th grade students in all. That's 100%. What I do know is that 3/4 went to Salt Lake City on a field trip. That's what I know. 3/4. And then half of the rest, so half of that fourth, half the rest went to Monticello for a different field trip. So that would be this section right here. All right, and then the other did not go on either field trip. The rest of them didn't. And what we do know is that leftover amount, once again, the idea of the leftover, is represented by 12. Well, that means the half of the rest also has to be 12, and that means each fourth of a section within our table is 24, and now we can quickly see that there should be 96 students in the 7th grade. Okay? All right, everybody take a look at number 7 and do number 7 all the way through. Number 7 goes like this. Camilla earned $160 over the summer. If she put 80% of her earnings into her savings account and spent 75% of the rest on a gift for her mother, how much money did she have left over? So this idea of a leftover again. So I'm dividing my tape diagram up into 5 sections. The reason is because the first part that was mentioned was 80%, which is 4/5. So 5 sections. So I know that the entire amount or the whole amount is 160. That's 100%. I know that if I divide 160 up into 5 equal sections, that means each section is 32. That's obvious. And the first 4 sections, she put 80% of it into her savings account. So that means she put $128 into her savings account. But it then goes on to say she spent 75% of the rest on a gift for her mother. Well, that's 3/4. So if I divide that last portion of the tape diagram into fourths, that means each of those sections would be 8. I saw a lot of you do that. She spent 3/4 on a gift for her mother, and then how much money did she have left over? It should be clear at this point. She has $8 left over right there. Any questions on number 7? All right, our last problem for today, and some of you I can see have already gotten started on it. Let's do number 8. Number 8 says Mila rode in a bike tour across Utah. On one particular day, 40% of her ride was uphill. And for me, that tells me a lot about how I'm going to divide up my tape diagram. Of the rest of her ride, 1/3 was downhill and 2/3 was flat. If the flat portion of her ride was 36 miles, how far did she ride that day? Well, the 40% tells me I want to divide my tape diagram up into 5 sections because 40% is 2/5. I don't know the total amount or the whole amount. That's what I'm trying to find, which is 100%. What I do know is that on that day, 40% of her ride was uphill, which is 2/5. Of the rest of her ride, 1/3 was downhill, so that's the downhill portion, and the rest of it, the 2/3, was flat. And I know that the flat part was 36 miles. So that's why I divided that up into 18 and 18. So that tells me a lot right there. Every section is 18 of my tape diagram, and that makes the whole amount 90, so 90 miles that day. Any questions? All right, we are finished.